Good morning, everybody. Please remain standing whilst the Mayor's chaplain offers prayers.
Good morning. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the specifically merciful. All praise and thanks are owed to Allah for His countless favors upon us. May His mercy, peace, and blessings descend upon the resting places of all His chosen servants. In particular, the prophets that are described in the Quran as being the individuals of determination. Our first father, Adam. The second father, Noah. The father of the prophets, the close friend of God, Abraham. The patient, strong, trustworthy Moses. The remarkable Jesus. His truthful, pure mother, Mary. And finally, upon the final messenger of Allah that He sent for the guidance of humanity, Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him and them all. Respected listeners, from the timeless teachings of Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, is the teaching of shepherdship. Every prophet that was sent by God served the role of being a shepherd, both realistically by caring for their flock of sheep, and through virtue of this humble employment, metaphorically by caring for their people. The Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible and will be questioned about his flock. The leader of a group is a guardian and responsible for their subjects. A man is a guardian for his family. A woman is the guardian of her home and responsible for her children. The employee is a guardian of the property of their employer and is responsible for them. No doubt, each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible and will be questioned about their flock." This prophetic tradition makes specific mention regarding the idea of a flock, a group that we are responsible for protecting, physically and emotionally fulfilling, nurturing, tending to the sick, and thinking about how to create a safe, happy, sustainable future. For the shortest path to finding God is through servitude to His creation. The Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, taught, the most beloved deed in the sight of God is placing happiness in the heart of another person, removing their hunger, paying off their debt, removing their difficulty. And for me to walk with my brother in their time of need is more beloved to me than secluding myself in the holy mosque of Medina for an entire month. The holy mosque of Medina being the second holy site of Islam, where the reward for good deeds and prayers are multiplied by 1,000 times. And in a remarkable incident during the migration of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, 1448 years ago, during the first sermon that he delivered to the people of Medina, among who a Jewish rabbi was present, Abdullah bin Salam, he narrates and says, "I heard the Prophet of God say, O people, spread peace, feed the hungry, take care of your kin and your family ties, pray during the night while others rest, and you will enter heaven with peace." We pray for peace, love, kindness, understanding, the love of servitude, living for others, and making the world a better place for our future generations. We ask God for His love, the love of those that love Him, and the love of those deeds that will make Him love us. O God, we ask you to show us the truth as the truth, and grant us the ability to follow it, and show us falsehood as falsehood, and grant us the ability to stay far away from it. O Lord, forgive us, show mercy to us, grant us safety, guide us, provide for us, and fix the broken pieces within us. We pray for every goodness of this life and every goodness of the next, for ourselves, our loved ones, and every human and animal on earth. May peace and blessings be upon the chosen servants of God, and may God's peace be upon us all. Ameen. Thank you.
Thank you, Imams. Please be seated. Thank you. There are no plans for a fire alarm test. If you hear the alarm, please leave the building by the nearest exit. Please ensure mobile phones are switched off or on silent, and a £5 charge will be if anybody's phone goes off today. Restrooms are located on all floors, but please ask a member of staff for details should you require one. Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will eventually be loaded onto the Council's YouTube channel. Can I please remind all members that whilst we can disagree politically, please remain respectful for each other whilst dealing with Council business. Now, members of the public, members and officers, you are reminded that under the Openness of Local Government Bodies Regulations 2014, the press and public may film, audio record, photograph and use social media whilst the meeting is in progress. For Part A items only, and as long as no disruption is caused to the meeting. Anyone filming is asked to focus their attention on elected members rather than other visitors. Now, the announcement on the local government reorganisation is officially due this morning. It has been widely leaked in the media that there will be 4 unitary councils, with Preston partnering with Lancaster and Ribble Valley. The other proposed unitary councils are Blackpool, Fylde and Wyre, South Ribble, Chorley and Lancashire, Blackburn with Darwen, Burnley, Rosendale, Hyndburn and Pendle, and all the others being Pennine authorities. Now, I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the former Member of Parliament and Reform spokesperson, Anne Whitcomb, who was brutally murdered in her own home last week. My sincere condolences are sent to Anne's family at this awful time. Now, I'd like to bring in a spokesperson from the Reform Group to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We at Reform Preston and all of our colleagues and supporters across the country have been devastated by the loss of Anne Whitcomb. We know this has been felt across the political spectrum and would like to take a moment in this chamber today to remember Anne. Anne was a woman of unshakable principle and tireless dedication to public service. Previously an MP and more recently Immigration and Justice spokesperson for Reform UK. She served with integrity across decades, always fearless in standing up for what she believed in and for the love of our country. Above all, Anne was a deeply caring soul whose compassion extended far beyond politics. She was also a committed supporter of numerous charities. She was highly respected and will be deeply missed by many. Please join us in reflection to remember Anne and all those who have been victims of political violence.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Now, can we all stand for a minute's silence as a mark of respect? Thank you. You'll be seated. Can I now welcome Sarah Robinson, the new Director of Environment and Property, to her first council meeting. Welcome, Sarah. Now, can I remind members that following this meeting, there will be a screening of the People's Emergency Briefing, which will take place in the function room. A light lunch will be provided and the film is approximately 50 minutes long I recommend attending the screening as councils are central to reducing emissions across housing, transport planning and infrastructure, and to strengthen local resilience in the face of increasing flood risk, heat waves, food insecurity and wider systemic pressures. Now, depending how we progress today, I may adjourn to take a short comfort break, but we will see how we proceed. Are there any declarations of interest? Can members indicate if they have any disclosable pecuniary interests or personal and prejudicial interests in the items being discussed on the agenda? Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the meeting of council held on the 25th of June 2026. Are members happy that I sign the minutes as a correct record? Sign later. Item 4 is questions from members of the public, and 2 have been submitted. The first one is from Mr. Slater, who is here with us today. Can I remind you, Mr. Slater, that once you have asked your question and it has been answered, you are entitled to ask a supplementary question as long as it relates to the original. Mr. Slater, can you now please ask your question?
Okay, so apparently I can't add lib to this, and one of the ladies kindly printed it out for me. So verbatim, here we go. Better get the glasses first. Okay, so what is the current situation regarding Haslam Park Gatehouse in Ashton? The building appears to have been neglected for a number of years, and the condition of the interior remains unknown. There has been ongoing discussion about bringing the property back into use, yet little visible progress has been made. Could an update be provided on plans for the building?
Thank you. Can I ask Dwyer to respond, please?
No problem, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Lee, for your question. So you may be aware that the previous tenant of the gatehouse, back when it was in use, had sadly passed away, and at that point the building returned to the council to maintain. The previous tenant had been there for some time, and the building now, as you can quite clearly see, does need a full refurbishment. We've been in discussions, which I hope you'll welcome, with a cricket club regarding taking the building back into use and for it to become a full-time base for that club. If this is viable, we do hope it will be, then the club would fund the refurbishment of the building and would make it in a way that would suit their requirements as a cricket club. We've identified some work that needs to be required on the adjoining wall to the property, and this work is now being commissioned, so you'll see that done in due course. We're unable to move forward with the new tenant until that work is done, but pending the wall works, we will continue to liaise with the cricket club to progress their proposal. And while it remains vacant, we are monitoring the condition, and I can confirm that the building is safe, secure, and in a stable condition.
Mr. Slater, do you have a supplementary question? Okay.
Okay, that's all well and good, but it would be a time frame on this, because obviously this has been going on for several years now. Your predecessor, Freddie Bailey, kind of give the same sort of example, sort of reply. So obviously it's been going on for several years now. Obviously this discussion has always been brought up by the council on 2 occasions, and yet we're still in the same position as we are now, as we were before. So could we get some sort of time frame? And also, a side note, has the building been inspected recently? And if so, what was the actual outcome?
Thanks again for your question, Lee. So in terms of timeframes, I can't give a specific timeframe at this time because that is not in front of me. I do not know what the timeframes are for this adjoining wall work, but I can find that out for you. More than willing to communicate that to you directly for your information once I have that. As to regards with the building being inspected, yes, it is regularly inspected. That's how we know that it is safe, secure, and in a stable condition. As I say, these wall works will be commencing shortly. I can't give a timeframe at this point, but I will communicate that with you direct.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I leave the room? Councillor Desai, sorry, could you put your phone down? Thank you very much. It's been noted. Thank you. Right. Right. The second question is from Ms. Kershaw. However, she is unable to attend the meeting today. I have agreed to ask the question on Ms. Kershaw's behalf, and it is direct to Councillor Dwyer as follows. I live in Ashton and want to know what is happening with Haslam Park Play Park. It's seen very little investment over the last 15 years or so, and it is awful when compared to the Lower Penwitham Play Park. Councillor Dwyer, do you wish to briefly respond?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Ms Kershaw for a question, although she's not here today. Regarding Haslam Park play area in 2020 to 2022, the council invested £40,000 into the play park in Haslam Park, which was mainly used to address severe drainage issues. More recently, members will be aware that the tennis courts have been refurbished, which was funded by a lawn tennis association fund. We've recently had new cricket wickets installed at the park, funded by the English Cricket Board, and there's also been improvements to the multi-games area, otherwise known as a mugger, and the teen shelter, which were funded by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The playground facilities at Haslam Park, as with most of our parks, are being reviewed as part of the council's upcoming new play strategy. Working with consultants, this will involve, well, it has currently involved several months of community consultation, and the finished strategy, which I hope will come later this year, will prioritise sites for the council to invest based on the need and remaining equipment lifespan for the next 10 years. I do appreciate Ms Kershaw's question, but I would challenge that, in fact, Haslam Park has been the proud recipient of quite a deal of investment from this council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer. Email responses to the questions asked today will be sent out in due course. That now concludes questions from members of the public today. I was going to thank Mr Slater for attending the town hall and utilise this facility and to be escorted out, but I think he's already left. Yeah. Item 5. Now we will take item 5, which is questions to cabinet members, chairs of committees, representatives of outside bodies. Members are entitled to ask a question of any cabinet member or chair of a committee within their portfolio or terms of reference. And only one supplementary question may be asked, provided it is relevant to the original question. We haven't received any written notifications for questions for members appointed to serve on outside bodies. If anyone has any questions to ask on the information items on the agenda, including the special urgency decisions, they should do so at this point, as another opportunity will not be given when we reach those items. So if we can have a show of hands of anybody wishing to ask. So we're going to Councillor Atkins. Sorry, could you just read your names out? Sorry, I can't see from that. Councillor Walsh. I think I've got the list. All right, could we start with Councillor Atkins, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Councillor Dwyer in his cabinet role as Parks representative. And I was going to read out an email somebody sent me this morning about the current situation on Ashton Park, but I've been prevailed on not to do so, so I won't. But the gist of it was just to ask Councillor Dwyer in his cabinet role to confirm that the council are speeding ahead with the eviction of the travellers who are currently on Ashton Park, because the damage they are creating there is extensive and really expensive, and they're destroying work that's been expensively created, planting, etc. And it's going to be a very, very large bill to put any of this right. And it's lowering morale in the general area. Thank you. Thank you, Con.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. Yeah, as you'll be aware, and we've been involved in a number of email chains about this issue. This has been ongoing for some time, and I will say that I and officers alike are very frustrated by the time frame that it has taken for action to be taken on this occasion as compared to previous times. I will say that there are matters which I can't go into for obvious legal reasons in this chamber at this time publicly, but there is a piece of work to be done to investigate why this has taken so long. I can confirm that we're all right, that we are speeding ahead with proceedings, and I do hope that we'll see the eviction of these particular group of travellers very soon. I do recognise there's been a quite significant amount of damage done, which has been quite devastating to see. It's very frustrating for our parks team, who work so hard to maintain the park, and it is incredibly frustrating for the Friends group, who I know must be feeling incredibly upset and demoralised at this moment in time. So, of course, we will be looking to make all necessary repairs and everything that we can do to support the park and the Friends group going forward, as well as speeding through the eviction.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Atkins? You okay? Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I was rather hoping Councillor Martin Rawlinson will be in this morning, but anyway, I'll ask this question to Councillor Wise, if I may. I did ask a question when the High Court ruled and the Supreme Court ruled on the definition of sex in relation to safe places for women, and that has since been backed up by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. And apparently the UN has also, a representative from the UN has also said it's essential for safe places for women as well. Can I ask, why does Preston not have a policy on the use of safe places for women in the town hall? And I'm asking the question because it's something that's a new phenomenon for the town hall to be dealing with. And I think it avoids embarrassment and also an awkward position for officers and for members if we don't know the exact policy. Councillor Rawlinson said we would follow the letter of the law. So in view of that, can this be backed up with some sort of policy announcement? Because otherwise, I think we're just going from one thing to another, and I think it's not right for everybody concerned to not have a clear definition of where we should be with this issue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wise, are you able to answer that in that question? If not, then obviously the question was to Councillor Rawlinson, who's not here today. Are you able to answer that question? You're not. Okay. Councillor Thompson, a written response will be given to your question. Is that okay?
Yes, that'll be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Walsh, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Councillor Assel, the Cabinet Member for Housing Planning. So at the previous council meeting, I asked specifically about HMOs and how the new national scheme of delegation will essentially remove the democratic check on the process. In answering, you seem to have made a false statement saying that HMOs and the like will be subject to a gateway test. Given that Schedule 1 will not be subject to a gateway test, there will be no recourse at all to call these into council. Do you wish to retract that statement? And additionally, given the Article 4 changes for the Preston urban area don't come in until February, however, the changes under the National Scheme of Delegation come in October, we're going to be left with a 4-month gap where essentially we're going to be operating on the old rules without any scrutiny or oversight by councillors. So what does the council plan to do and deal with this intermediate period?
Thank you for your question again. I don't recall stating that HMOs, unless you can show me or provide me with a factual word by word what I said. I don't recall stating that HMOs would be subject to the gateway test specifically. The national scheme of delegation was discussed at the previous meeting. There was a input session put on by officers before the meeting took place for questions and answers. I did also offer members the opportunity to get in touch with myself and, if needed, facilitate a meeting with planning to go through any queries or questions that you may have. In relation to the HMOs and that window that you speak of, the local plan will be incorporating a policy that will address HMOs. So we have that policy. The Article 4 direction, yes, that's right, it won't be in place immediately. However, the policy will be there in the local plan. The Article 4 direction will also take effect. There will be a small couple of months window that you explained, that the slight overlap or lack of overlap, should I say. However, the officers are delegated to address planning applications, and that's to show some unity in the decisions. If members have any queries or concerns, there is still an opportunity to make contact with myself as a planning cabinet member or officers. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add on, okay, in general, the whole point of having rules and regulations and then having democratic oversight by councillors is to have that check and that balance against the rules. And when these rules are essentially right now, we are operating under the guise that the council officers are going to make the decisions that we want, right? When in the past, they've not been able to do that under the current rules. For example, the Rose Terrace HMOs and among others, where councillors had to unanimously vote against it. So, you know, essentially your argument is trust the system. Bureaucracy wins. I don't like that. I think that's a bad thing. I think we're seeing an erosion of democracy.
So what, do you have a question?
I do, yes. Okay.
Could you please refer to your question?
My final question is, so the Article 4 direction covers the Preston urban area, but what about the rural wards? What about them? Are we just kind of ignoring them and not bothering about them? They don't get covered by it. How are we going to address their concerns? Thank you.
The Article 4 direction was designed based on evidence, research, and the location of existing HMOs. So that is all evidence-led. So if there is a planning application received for an HMO in a rural area, that would be reviewed by officers and it would be a case-by-case application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nuttall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is directed to Councillor Brown. So I'm sure people have seen on social media the video discussing the roadworks that was going on in Longridge Road. What was mentioned at the end was a rather distressing fact that the rent for their warehouse was being increased by 65%, which I had a look at the financials. That number is correct. And it looks like that is being put forward to other warehouses. Now, given that these businesses have been subjected to a lot of financial distress, both because of these roadworks and because of traveller communities utilising the car park inappropriately, and in light of the strong financial position that Preston City Council appears to be in, could I ask why the council sees this increase as necessary or appropriate?
Thank you for the question. I'm a little unclear about the details. I mean, I presume this is a council asset that you're referring to, is that correct?
Yes, it is the rent for the warehouse.
Okay, well, obviously we do review it regularly. What we have to do is make sure that we do provide facilities for local businesses and beyond at a decent price, but obviously we need to maintain revenue for the council as well. So
What we are seeing is a big uptake in the number of units that are being let in council properties. We don't have a huge amount of issues in terms of empty properties, and that just really does state that the price that they're being let for is reasonable. But obviously, we'll look at anything in terms of an individual case going forward if there's an issue you want to bring to me directly. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor?
I do, yes. So the business in question, Alpha Pet Warehouse, have stated to me that in order to meet the rent requirements, they would have to increase their overturn by 60,000. And they have put forward the suggestion of this year a 3 to 3.5% increase for this calendar year and continue the rolling contract they are currently on.
Councillor Nuttall, we don't actually comment and discuss rental values here. So could we just stick to a question that you may have directly, but rather than going into details about personal rents? Thank you.
If I may just confirm, Madam Mayor, members and officers are not in a position to discuss individual commercial confidential rents with any tenant in this chamber. If there is an issue, we would advise the tenant to take it up with the relevant officer, and I'm sure that is part of the due process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You okay with that, Councillor Nuttall? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Good.
Councillor Landless, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to, poor old Councillor Dwyer's been having a fairly busy morning. I've got a slightly more mundane and parochial question than those who've gone before me today. I am constantly being hassled about Goosner Village Green and the state of it. Even though I was on holiday, I got constantly been sent pictures of the green and what was I going to do about it and what have you. I think particularly the issue that I would like an answer to at some stage, I've asked it before, is that we had the play equipment removed last year because it was unsafe, and with the promise that it would be replaced by March this year. Now we're in about mid-July. I just think you might not be able to give me a definitive answer today, but it would be nice to get some indication over the next few weeks as to what's going to happen, and can we keep up the maintenance of the green, because it's looking a bit more like a meadow than a village green. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landless, for your question. Believe me that Goosner Green is on my radar, and I have had conversations with officers about it. I do understand that it is very frustrating for villagers to see the condition it's in, having had the play area removed, and it does, for the time being, look like very little has been done. My understanding is that a full repair, a full replacement of the play area at Goosner Green could be in the realm of between 100 to over £250,000, which is a huge capital pressure on what is a very limited player budget for the entire city. What I will say is I understand that officers are liaising with the parish council. I understand that there is quite a considerable amount of SIL funding, which could be made available for team provision at Goosner Green. I do also understand we are also awaiting proposals and costs from 4 other playground companies for some provision which could be put back to Goosner Green. I don't have any more details at this moment, but I'm more than happy to go back with officers for a further update. The information I'm giving you there is probably about 4 to 6 weeks sort of ago. But I'm more than happy to go back with officers and loop yourself in and other board councillors so that we can get a more substantial update.
You okay with that, Councillor Landless, or do you have a supplementary? Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And my question is also for the Cabinet Member for Parks, Community Safety. You're earning your money today, Connor. We recently welcomed the 6-month update on the City Centre Action Plan on the 2nd of July, which showed quite a significant percentage reduction in antisocial behaviour and crime in the city centre. We also saw the launch of the Lancashire-wide Antisocial Behaviour Action Plan, earlier in June, strengthening that multi-agency work and enforcement under Ops Centurion. And my question is, while these targeted city centre and county-wide resources are really commendable, residents in our rural and suburban wards remain quite anxious about crime and antisocial behaviour. So how will the Cabinet member ensure that these enforcement tools, early intervention strategies and partnerships from these plans are actively scaled to protect rural and suburban areas, ensuring our communities are not left behind? Thank you.
Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. I'm in the hot seat today, isn't I? Yeah, antisocial behaviour. So I do welcome that Councillor Bell recognises the work that has been done in the city centre. I point colleagues to Bob Preston article which was recently published regarding this. Some really positive figures in that the targeted work of the police, the council and associated agencies, that collaborative work is really paying off in the city centre. And I believe it's something like a 49% uptick in shoplifting convictions and a 22% drop in overall shoplifting activities. That's just one part, of course, of overall antisocial behaviour within the public space protection order of the city centre, but it's a very significant one that's affecting local businesses and retail staff. So I'm very pleased about that. Councillor Bell does make a very good point, though, regarding suburban and rural areas. I think, as we know, when we are in a urban authority majority, of course, a great deal of resource goes into those urban areas, but I should stress that it is not the case that rural and suburban areas are forgotten. In terms of our targeting of antisocial behaviour intervention activity, this is primarily police-led in terms of the information and evidence that the police have. And the more specific task force for rural crime and also suburban crime in the Lancashire area, mostly led by the Police and Crime Commissioner. I'm more than happy to get Councillor Bell some more specific details as to what intervention work we're doing within specific wards, in particular our rural north, rural east wards, which I know will be of interest to him. I'm happy to pass that on at a later time, just so that I'm not giving you any sort of vague information in this chamber. I'll give you some more specific information via email if that's okay.
Thank you. So, all right, thank you. Councillor Crowe, please. Councillor Crowe, did you have a question? Yeah. All right, we have you on the list. Oh, sorry. Councillor Vora, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a question for Cabinet Member for Parks and Community Safety. Can you please give an update on Preston City Council success at the Green Flag Awards, please?
Now that's one that I'm welcoming. Thank you, Councillor Vora. I definitely wasn't expecting that one. Councillor Vora, colleagues, yes, I'm very pleased to give a positive update today. You may be aware that on Tuesday this week, the Green Flag Awards were announced for this year, and I am very, very pleased to announce that Preston City Council were the recipient of 5 awards. These awards were for Ashton Park, Haslam Park, Avenham and Miller Parks, Fishwick Nature Reserve, and Winkley Square Gardens. I nearly forgot the 5th, and I knew I was going to do that. Winkley Square Gardens specifically is a particular success case, as we have received Green Heritage accreditation at Winkley Square. It's the first time that we've had a Preston Green open space achieve this award. And I would also like to commend 2 community groups in Friends of Haslam Park and also Intact Centre, specifically the Dogcroft Nature Reserve at Intact Centre. They have received Community Green Flag Awards. So I'm very pleased. I want to commend all our officers, all our parks teams who have made that possible. Their work often going somewhat unnoticed and under the radar. It's amazing work that they do, and they help us achieve year after year Green Flag success. And I would also commend all our friends group, not just those recognised at the awards this year, but all those who help in the custodianship of our wonderful park. So thank you for your question, and I hope that we can all celebrate that.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer. Councillor Iqbal, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question to the leader, Councillor Brown. It was heavily reported last week that the Preston Guildhall has been placed on Theatres Trust at risk register. Can the leader indicate what this means for our longer term ambitions to have a new refurbished entertainment centre in Preston? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Iqbal. Yes, it was heavily reported just last week that the Theatres Trust has acknowledged our ambitions in terms of delivering a first-class entertainment venue for Preston, It's very significant because the Theatre Trust is a national advisory body for theatres across the country to the government. So their core mission is to protect theatres, buildings and champion live performance and ensure communities across the UK have access to high quality cultural spaces. But what it did show as well is that out of the 39 venues, so many were from the north of England, showing the disproportionate effect that austerity policies have had on communities like ours in the north. There's also frustration also with the local press, which is felt across this side of the chamber, because there's a bit of a yarn being spun that they're actually championing a new venue for Preston. This council has been doing this for a number of months, if not years, and that has included communications and discussions with the relevant government departments and Secretary of State. So this intervention will basically, with such a high-profile body, help our plans. We remain committed to decide the future of the venue within the timescale promised. But to do that, we need to have the full evidence. We need the structural surveys. You know, we need to do the proper reports to actually decide the best solution going forward. And obviously, Councillor Hindle, alongside myself and Councillor Rawlinson, especially with Councillor Hindle and me, will have a big decision to take very soon. And obviously, that will then come to the full chamber. But yes, we are very, very happy that the Theatres Trust has recognised the fact that venues are important for our community, and we're hoping to move forward with support from them and others soon. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Lowe, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my question is to Councillor Brown. With us showing the emergency briefing today, and with us now going to join up with Lancaster, which is a Green Run council, I would like to ask you to reaffirm our targets for net zero and a commitment for net zero, and to make sure that us doing stuff like the Green Week and showing the emergency briefing isn't just an example of greenwashing.
Absolutely. What I will say is we need to wait for the official announcement. There's stuff in the press, and I just think it's very unfair on the staff that these things have been leaked at this stage. Madam Mayor, and I'd have probably preferred if the advice was not to mention what you mentioned this morning, but that's a separate matter. Yeah, absolutely. We passed a climate emergency motion back in 2019. We're still committed to that. Obviously, the aspiration there is that we reduce, try to reduce get to net zero emissions by 2030. Obviously, with us being a district council, that is a bit difficult because we're not that big. So we've got to work with partners, but obviously through a new unitary authority, whoever that's going to be, we're going to have much more clout to achieve that. And please do see the film. Obviously, I'll bring Councillor Sarah in if he wants to. Obviously, it's his portfolio. But the film will be really illuminated about the effects that climate change is having, especially on less well-off communities, because it's less well-off communities that are being affected by climate change. And frankly, people are losing their lives because of it. That's the reality of it. We see what the heat's like at the moment. It's an effect of climate change. That is the science that's basically undisputable. So we're absolutely committed to it. And please come and watch the film afterwards at 12 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. So that brings us. Is that supplementary now? No. So that brings us to the end of questions. Do we have? Do you want to reply to that, Councillor Salwa? Yeah, please do.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor, for the question. Yeah, 100% we can reaffirm our commitments. I'd like to think that we're a progressive council. We've sort of spearheaded with the climate portfolio in the past 2 years, especially with having our climate forum, which has been developed. Not had that before. We also have a lot of climate events around in the summer as well. I think we're having another one this year around a car roadshow, so around EVs, etc., on the flag market. But we also had the climate jury as well, the recommendations. And through that, we're sort of pushing towards a bus user group and many other things as well. But yeah, you're right, we should do more on our green stuff. We are doing more within our parks, within our communities and within the council as well. So happy to take anything from the outside of this meeting, what we can work on. But yes, please do attend the briefing if you can. There will be food, there will be drink. If you can't come for the movie, at least come for the food at least. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Salwa. Councillor Kulbeki, sorry. Didn't have you on my list.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think this question's for Councillor Sarwar, not Councillor Dwyer, but I could be wrong. Follows on very nicely from Councillor Lowe's question. Obviously, we've had a very long and naturally hot summer, and we'll all agree that the scientific evidence for climate change is unequivocal. And in anticipation of other climate events or similar climate events, I was just wondering if we could publish in a similar vein to, say, Manchester Council, a list of cool spaces. I know we've got the Harris, we've got a number of places in Preston, but if we could work with local organisations such as churches and maybe support them in providing water stations, air conditioning, making sure toilet facilities are open. Obviously, this would benefit elderly residents or more vulnerable residents and families. But I have noticed, I did a Google search on this, so I could be wrong. You know, we may have a list of cool spaces, but I noticed in quite a lot of other cities, there's quite an extensive list. And I'm just wondering, in anticipation of what happens next year, if we do have a similar climate event, such as this extreme climate event, maybe we could start looking together as a council group to, to doing something about this and reassuring people. And maybe, it might encourage people to come into town a bit more if they know they can go somewhere, get a drink of water and just cool off. Thank you very much, Councillor Salwa.
Councillor Salwa, would you be able to respond to that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, an important one as well. So, yeah, you're right. We need to do more. We do a lot of work around warm spaces. We should do a lot of work. We should be doing more work around cool spaces as well. And you're right. We will be getting a lot more unseasonal weather. Climate is chaotic at the moment. As you've seen with the weather, we've had multiple heat waves. Even the news as well. If you've heard or if you've seen online, it was over 2,500 deaths. They're estimating researchers. So it is a severe matter. But again, climate fits into so many things. So it's me working with other members on this side of the chamber and obviously across as well. It's health related. So yeah, I will come back to the council with a more of a robust plan. You probably would have seen my comments online as well around encouraging community centres, businesses and sort of cities, people within the city to sort of be more open to cool spaces, offer people drinks, etc. So I think every little bit helps in that sense. But let me come back to you with a more of a robust plan on cool spaces and what we intend to do. Thanks.
You okay with that, Councillor Kobaki?
Thank you very much.
So I think that does bring us to the end of questions, and I haven't missed anybody out. Right, okay. So we go on to item 6, is a report on the adoption of sex establishment policy and guidance notes 26 to 30. Councillor Afzal, are you moving this report?
I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item before Council is the proposed adoption of Preston City Council's Sex Establishment Policy and Guidance Notes 2026 to 2030. The policy provides a framework for how the Council will regulate and determine applications for licensed sex establishments under the Local Government Act. It applies to sexual entertainment venues, sex shops and sex cinemas. The proposed policy does not represent a change in the Council's overall approach. It retains the existing case-by-case assessment process, confirming that every application will continue to be considered on its individual merits. Importantly, the Council does not take a moral position on sex establishments. Instead, decisions are based on the relevant licensing legislation, public safety, safeguarding, local circumstances, and the evidence presented with each application. The policy also provides clear guidance on matters including application requirements, locality considerations, licence conditions, safeguarding, enforcement and compliance, with the aim of ensuring transparent, fair and proportionate decision-making. At the time of drafting, the Council licensed 2 sexual entertainment venues with no licensed sex shops or sex cinemas. The draft policy has been subject to public consultation, including engagement with Lancashire Constabulary, Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service, Lancashire County Council, local businesses, residents, and elected members. Responses broadly supported retaining the current case-by-case approach, and no substantive objections were raised to the core policy. The report concludes that the policy will continue to support lawful and well-managed businesses while promoting public safety, safeguarding and effective regulation. It also confirms that there are no significant financial, legal, equality or climate implications beyond those already managed within existing council resources. The decision before council today is to approve and adopt the sex establishment policy and guidance notes 2026 to 2030, as outlined in part 2.1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Afzal. Is it seconded? Thank you, Councillor Desai. Are there any amendments? Councillor Thompson?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, not an amendment, but I just wanted to mention something about it.
Yes, you can.
Is it? Yeah, we don't have any problem with this policy at all, but I was just wanting to confirm something, because it says here the policy confirms that the council does not want to take a moral stand on regulating sex establishments. Fair enough, but when we put the white ribbon policy through, it did state in there that they actually didn't want to see sex establishments, entertainment establishments going forward. And in fact, Councillor Brown stood up and said, I'm not sure why we need these in this day and age. So I would just really like, I don't have an interest in this, by the way, but anyway, so I just wanted to confirm, Matthew, or that there is no clash of policy there, and that this isn't sort of trying to ban it through the back door. It's just a straight policy, as you've said. So if you could confirm that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Do you want to reply back on that? But yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the concern raised. Absolutely, this is a policy that is going to be used by the licensing committee, by the council officers. I mean, we already have a policy. This is an updated, a better version. Like I said, it addresses all the safeguarding concerns, and the fact that the white ribbon policy, I can't comment on that. That's not, it's not correlated with this. This is specifically for licensing. So I can assure you it will be case by case applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I could just confirm that obviously the white ribbon policy will stand, and the procedures that we do have and promoting it more widely, and it's going to deepen even further from this side of the chamber. The comments I did make were basically about the need for a women-led conversation about these venues. You know, I don't think it's something for men to get involved in, and it also needs to be evidence-based as well. So obviously the white ribbon process is actually deepening really well, but as part of that, potentially we can have conversations about sex establishments and, you know, the merits or otherwise of them. But I think that conversation can't come from people like myself as a man mainly. I think it needs to come from women. So those were the comments that I made. However, nothing in this policy will prevent that from happening. That's my understanding. And obviously if it did, we'd seek to change it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Okay. Any other comments? No, Councillor Thompson, okay? Okay. Thank you. Go to the vote on this item. All those in favour, please show your hands. Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No, it's carried. Thank you. Item 7 is a report on the change of times for meetings of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee 26-27. Councillor Rowlinson isn't here, but Councillor Brown, are you moving the report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it appears a very simple one. There's been a request, my understanding from Sue as chair, just to move the meeting time forward, starting at 10 o'clock instead of 10:30. So that's all the report does, Madam Mayor. So a very easy decision, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Wise, thank you. Are there any amendments? No. Can we now vote on this item, please? All those in favour, please show your hands. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No. Carried. Thank you. So item 8 is the notification of changes to the membership of committees. Are there any changes to be reported? Group leaders? No. Councillor Brown, anything? No. Fine. Okay. Item 9, we come to the notice of motion from Councillor Sawar entitled Parliamentary Call for a Televised Emergency Briefing on the Climate and Nature Crisis. Councillor Sawar, do you wish to move your motion?
Yeah, yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So before I come to the motion itself, I think we can all agree that the last few weeks have shown exactly why this motion matters. We've lived through multiple heat waves. We've seen wildfires across parts of the country, including Greater Manchester, and we've seen the pressures that the extreme weather has placed on our NHS and our emergency services. I'm sure we've all, I know we talked about the question earlier, and I talked about the number of deaths that were estimated in the news this week. But if we just pause on that for a moment, that's over 2,700 people. That's behind every one of those numbers. That's somebody's parent, someone's grandparent, someone's friend. So whatever anyone's political views may be, those events remind us that the impacts of climate change are already being felt. The climate is becoming more chaotic, it's becoming more unpredictable and unstable. We need to adapt to these changes, Madam Mayor. We need communities to understand the risks and prepare for them and become more resilient. A few weeks ago, I attended the screening of the National Emergency Briefing at the University of Lancashire, which this council supported. Following that event, I made a commitment to everyone who was in attendance. I will bring this matter back to Preston City Council and call for a parliamentary briefing. For those of you that don't know, the National Emergency Briefing, it brings together leading experts in climate science, public health, food security, economics and national security. It is supported by organisations including the National Trust, the Royal Meteorological Society, the Royal Society of Biology and many others. And what I particularly liked about this campaign was that it's not about politics, it's about science, it's about facts, and it's about the impacts. The briefing is designed to explain what climate is, and it breaks down what nature is in practice, and it's honest about the risks without sort of alarms them, and to leave people feeling informed rather than feeling overwhelmed. Now, since submitting the motion, if you were to go onto the website, you'll see the government has now responded to the campaign. The government recognises that climate and nature breakdown both pose growing risks to our health, our economy and national security. But for me, I believe that the campaign asks a very simple question, and that is, if government, ministers and experts all understand these risks, how do we make sure that the wider public understands that too? So there is a difference with information sitting in reports, sitting on computers, but how does that information get out to the local people, those lives who will affect the most? So that is exactly what this motion is. That is what this motion is seeking to address. It doesn't ask this council to solve climate change. Yeah, we'll be here all day talking about that. It doesn't ask us to commit to any new spending. It just simply asks us to support the better public communication put by the briefing by writing to our two members of Parliament, Sir Mark Kendrick and Maya Ellis, and asking them to support a nationally televised emergency briefing led by trusted independent experts. And as Madam Mayor's mentioned earlier, that there will be a briefing after today's council briefing. I hope that all colleagues do it from all political groups will stay and attend. If you can, watch it and make your minds up. And I think that's, I don't need to say more on it really other than that. I hope you do support this motion. Hope you do support this call for to Parliament to nationally televise this briefing. And we are, for your benefit, we are looking to hopefully show this at the Met this year as well. So I am working on that. I'm also working with officers to get this out into the community. So whichever organisation wants to show that within their community, you will be able to, we will support you by doing that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Salwa. Is that seconded? All right, Councillor Hall, seconded. Are there, and a question? Okay. So we've got Councillor Hinder, Councillor Potter. I'm just going to have to make a note of this. So Councillor Ward and Councillor Thompson, Councillor Brown. Councillor Ward, do you want to because you put your hand up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this is a motion I will be strongly supporting, one which is definitely overdue. This week, the Met Office released their climate report, where they stated that the extreme weathers we've recently experienced are no longer extreme one-offs, but are now the norm. Every year they come, be it heat waves or droughts or floods or extreme wind and storms. Clearly, we do need to take action, and I recognise that education is the first step in doing that. And it's really important that people understand both the science behind climate change and the actions now needed to make it better. However, clearly, education is the first step, but we also need to go further. I will be asking the council to not only make sure people understand the importance of climate change, but also to take on board that we need to show and take the lead in making sure that actions which can be implemented are demonstrated. Two quick questions related to that. The development next door at Ulmerson House, which obviously is a Preston City Council development, what steps are we taking to make sure that building is net zero and is going to be a sort of flag example of how sustainable building can be done? And of course, recently we've had the discussions around new council housing being owned by the Preston City Council. Again, what steps we're making to make sure that these new homes demonstrate to other developers that homes can be sustainable, they can be net zero, and this is the way that we should be moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Hindle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to speak in support of this notice of motion and highlight a real-life example to highlight what is happening right here in Lancashire to nature. Because of our changing weather patterns from global warming, I'm going to highlight the decline in pied flycatchers. Pied flycatchers are nationally declining, having decreased by 42% in the last 22 years and have ceased breeding in many places. Every year, I eagerly await the return of the pied flycatchers. They are a beautiful petite bird. They are smaller than a house sparrow. They nest in ancient woodlands, particularly like oaks, and in the northwest of England. I await their return as they migrate from West Africa, and they leave Africa when they are guided by their weather. Put simply, for years and years, they have arrived in the UK at the peak caterpillar time, so they can feed their young on a plentiful supply of caterpillars. However, due to our springs coming earlier and earlier, they are missing out on this peak time of their food source, and they are arriving too late from Africa to benefit from it. This is a real-life example of how it is affecting the breeding success of the pied flycatcher, where unless they evolve to alter innate patterns, it could affect their very survival. So I took a quick look at the government report, and it stated that warmer conditions earlier in the year are likely to increase the mismatch between pied flycatchers and their caterpillar prey. This has already occurred as warming has moved leaf budding dates earlier in the year, and only the more adaptable caterpillars have advanced their population boom to match. As caterpillars provide a large proportion of pied flycatcher food during nesting, this mismatch has left them with less food available during this crucial period. Some birds have moved their nesting dates forward to match, but obviously the pied flycatchers are less able to do so, possibly due to other factors influencing migration dates. This is just one example, and I'm not sure how many people in this chamber are aware of the plight of these beautiful birds. Therefore, I feel that televising the emergency briefing to the nation to provide information on the climate and the nature crisis can only be beneficial, and I urge fellow councillors to back this notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hindle. Councillor Walsh, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to ask, because we're spending hundreds of billions on net zero, okay? And you're talking about the lives that have been lost. And whilst I do appreciate that, you know, the world is changing, are we really going to keep taxing people more and more and more to pay for it? Are we going to take away things like the winter fuel allowance, which cost between around 1 to 2 billion, and that was taken away in 2024, brought back in 2025, and in a 6-day cold snap in January 2025, around 2,000 pensioners in this country died of cold. So we're really, like, you know, we're just spending billions upon billions, hundreds of billions, trillions, okay, on this idea, instead of just using a bit of common sense. and realizing that the thing that is more important to people's lives right now is the cost of living, the economy. That's what we should be focusing on. Do you not agree?
Councillor Brown, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. I want to praise Councillor Starloff for the work he's done on this. It's an amazing motion. The reality behind this is that all the credible scientists and charities and NGOs, including the National Trust, the Met Office, Climate Change Committee, RSPB, are behind this motion. These people aren't deluded. The people who have spent years, decades, researching the effects of climate change and the effect it has on communities. We're getting to a stage where civilization itself is being threatened by some of the extreme temperatures we're seeing. So obviously the motion will be a televised emergency led by the Prime Minister. Obviously that's going to change soon, as we know. But as well as the 2,700 excess deaths that Suleiman did say, we also have 40,000 excess deaths from air pollution. And what I really want to do is tackle this kind of stuff that's coming from the right wing in politics. And this is some kind of, Guardian reading, elitist, kind of like establishment push around climate change, and it's completely false. It isn't. The reality is it's the working class communities who are disproportionately affected by climate change. It's the working class communities who don't have the money to retrofit their houses. It's people who are working in the gig economy who are suffering ill health because of the effects of climate change, exposed to extreme temperatures and the health and safety being affected. I mean, the reality is it is the likes of Donald Trump, obviously very close to Reform UK, part of the billionaire class, who I would term the establishment, who are very keen to see new North Sea oil drilling. And would it be like in the 1970s when it was done in public ownership when Tony Benn was the Energy Secretary? No, it's the big corporations that have caused this country problems for decades. That is a real issue. And obviously the elites across the world will want to see and trash climate change because it suits their interests of fossil fuel big business, Madam Mayor. So I'm glad we're sticking to this. I'm glad we're actually trying to educate people about the reality. There were too many people who could be here now because of the effects of climate change. And, this has been going on for decades. If you listen to an amazing Marvin Gaye number called Mercy, Mercy Me from 1971, it was an issue back then. And it's got worse and worse. And obviously, we're custodians of this planet. God gave us, the right to be on this planet, and we're there to look after it while we're here, Madam Mayor. And we've all got a responsibility not to value greed and individualism and materialism. It's about actually looking after everyone and having a kind of existence where we can share the resources that the planet gives us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Could I bring in Councillor Alakou, please? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right, climate change. It's good. It's nice. It's a good initiative. Yeah, we all realize that things changing around us now. We feel more hot about the scientific evidence about that our colleague mentioned here. I want to tell him to all of us that we have a duty to inform ourselves from not only from a report that you receive or summary you meet some people, but also from scientific evidences from internet or from books here. And currently in 2026, it is something called solar cycle. And solar cycle, it is lasts for 11 years, and currently we are at the maximum, we are at the peak. Yeah. So we are experiencing this kind of temperature that we all see because of the solar peak. And this solar peak is not all the time the same. Sometimes it can be milder, sometimes it can just make the temperature on Earth to rise further. Yeah. So now putting all those on the climate change and that we have to do something, we have to meet net zero till 2030 or 2050. Yeah. It puts strain on local economy, national economy, and on everyone. And the question it's very simple. Who will benefit and how from this motion and making all this show, above ticking boxes, because we've seen ticking boxes all over the place around this idea of we are going to meet net zero. And what we do all the time, we just moving our, instead of producing here, we produce in China, we produce in Asia, we produce in America, anywhere else, just to meet this net zero, try to reach it. And what we do, we deplete our country, our economy, our local economy from resources. And we let the people here without jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Potter, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sarwar, for bringing this forward. Of course, the Lib Dem group will be supporting it. One thing I do actually disagree with you slightly on, when you said this is not about politics, it absolutely is about politics, because actually those of us that believe in the devastating impacts of climate change need to remind everyone every day, every week about how this affects not just the working class, but everyone. And it is, you know, how many times have we heard this is a once in 100-year event, but it was the same one that happened last year. It is irrefutable, the evidence. But the reason why we have to do this, and people might argue, well, what's the point in this motion? What can Preston do? We need to make sure that people who believe in the devastation of climate change say it as regularly, as often as possible, because we know there are climate skeptics, particularly on the right wing of politics. We know the Reform Cabinet member for the Environment at County Hall does not believe in climate science. So if we don't push this forward, then these sorts of arguments get lost. And so we have to be very determined, not just about cool spaces. We need, as we've done in previous budgets, and I know you guys went a little way towards the last one, to getting more trees planted in every area of the city because of the cooling effect that has on not just the atmosphere, but also preventing flooding. And we talked, Councillor Walsh talked about net zeros. We've heard this loads from Reform about, you know, net zero scepticism. And the fact is they always miss that our energy prices are linked to gas. And actually, if we cut that link, it would cut bills. And you know what? The more we invest in renewable energies and better insulation and other things in our home and better quality of our builds in our homes, it means that cost comes down. And it was amazing. Lots of people who were climate skeptics who say, oh, you know, doesn't matter, doesn't affect me, doesn't matter. And then the Stern report came out, for those of you that remember, that said, actually, what it will do as well is cost not just individuals, but nations billions and trillions of pounds if we do not deal with climate change. So do not believe that narrative that we've heard behind me. It is absolutely, it will cost us more if we do not deal with this. And one person that has come round, and unfortunately this is kind of symptomatic of the way right-wing thinking sometimes goes, is that Jeremy Clarkson was very much a climate skeptic. He isn't anymore because his farm has suffered from catastrophic rainfall and now catastrophic droughts. And he went on to the Times last week and said, I didn't really care about climate change until it affected me. We on this side have to care about climate change, whether it affects us or not, because actually we do know it will affect everybody. And so this is really important that we keep on banging this drum that climate change is an existential threat to the lives of people, not just around the world, but here in Britain, here in Preston. I welcome this motion. We should support it wholeheartedly.
Councillor Potter, Councillor Thompson, did you?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Where do I start with this? Well, first of all, I think we'll look at, Councillor Brown mentioned credible science. And I have to cut in this, the credible science on this is it seems to be one-sided. There are a number of questions that aren't answered. And going forward, I mean, we've got things like, we've got for electric cars. Well, we're shipping electric cars in from China at half the price of the electric cars that we produce. So one, you've got a massive carbon buildup because you're shipping these things from the other side of the world. Nobody seems to bother about that. Actually, if we all had electric cars, the grid couldn't support us anyway. So it's practical questions that I think the pro climate change activists are not buying into. There's more questions. One of the biggest things that I think is a problem is the amount of people that are on the planet. I mean, the population in this country has doubled in my lifetime, or more or less doubled. I know I'm a bit older than most people, but it has. And the idea that there aren't enough insects, for birds. Yeah, you're right, because the insect population is dropping considerably. When I was a kid driving around my dad's car in the evening, dad's car would be covered with dead flies. And now if you do the same journey, there's very few flies. So yes, there is something happening. Climate is changing, but I think people are asking the wrong questions. And I think we are down to what we create. We contribute 1% of carbon across the whole. Our contribution worldwide is 1%. We should be putting pressure on other countries to come into to buy into the idea that we can do alternatives other than the ones that we're looking at now. What the climate profits go on talk about is things that also cause problems. For example, air source heat pumps. Everyone's, oh, we must have one of those. Well, I've got a neighbour who's got one. He's got an old house and it's linked in with his wood burner. I've got a daughter who's got one and she's in a very modern house with a lot of insulation and it works. But the problem is with them is when the temperature gets so low that you really need them, then it kicks in and starts heating the water up with electricity. So it's not really, we need a proper discussion about it. And I don't think that we're getting one, because anybody who sort of questions any of this is being deemed a right-wing fascist or a friend of Donald Trump. And I just have to say, I don't know Donald Trump at all. So just to make that plain. Sorry. So yeah, and the deaths, 2,700 deaths have been registered or it's been reported that they're due to climate change. That figure has been questioned. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. But what I'm saying is there's not another opinion allowed to be voiced without it being torn down as being some sort of fascist about this subject. There are a lot of things in here about security, our security, etc. There's a lot of threats to our security besides climate change. And I could go on about those all day. Food and medical risks. Yes, there's a lot of medical risks. One of the biggest probably medical risks that I can see is that most of the drugs that people use, especially when you get to my age, are made in China and India. And if something falls down in the chain of supply, or we fall out with one of those countries, we leave the country absolutely at the mercy of those countries. So, and plus shipping these things in from abroad as well contributes to the carbon problem that we have. So I don't think, I'm not saying that there isn't climate change, there is, and there has been climate change in the past as well. And in the summer of '76, because I remember it was very hot, and it wasn't as hot as we've had recently, but it did go on for quite a long time, and reservoirs were drying up and everything else. I also read a book about Spain. In the early 20th century, there was a lot of serious flooding in Spain, and those floods weren't.
Councillor Thompson, you've got 1 minute left.
Okay, thank you. Those weren't caused by climate change. They were just one-off events. So we need an honest conversation about it. And I think asking, because what the council commits to here is asking the Prime Minister to deliver a speech on the television to talk about climate change and communicate, it says here, the scale and immediacy of the risks that we face. And I just think before we're hyping it up as being something that we've not really fully explored, because any voice of opposition or questions about it are just knocked back as being, well, you just a climate change denier. I'm not denying climate change, but we need a realistic conversation about it. And I don't think, probably won't help the Prime Minister's popularity either if he does this, but anyway, so I'm not really bothered about that, but anyway.
Right, on time, Councillor Thompson, that's it, time out, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know where to start really. We've had the technology for electric cars for a long time. If we'd actually done something about it when we knew climate change was about to take place, when we knew carbon particles in the atmosphere were increasing at a massive rate, we might not be in this situation. Climate change is going to increase immigration significantly as people escape warm climates. So, we obviously, we want to help people so they don't actually want to come and live in a country which is less effective. These people who are on about climate change, they're not just prophets, they're scientists. The people who have studied this. I've been aware of carbon particles in the atmosphere increasing massively over the last 30, 40 years. It's a reality. Ice caps melting, temperatures rising, people dying. And we've all been guilty of cognitive dissonance. When you see a fire in Australia, you think, well, it's not affecting me, it doesn't bother me. It does. And it's this right now philosophy or idea where we should be bothered about economics now, which has caused this mess. And it's this actual adherence to fossil fuels, which has released trillions and trillions of tons of carbon into the atmosphere over the last 2 or 3 centuries, which has caused this problem. And if we have this right now philosophy and continue with this, we won't have future generations. We won't have a decent environment. We won't be able to stop mass immigration. We won't be able to stop countries from having their water supplies decimated, to having the crops absolutely, completely destroyed by this climate crisis. And all these vulnerable people who are suffering at the moment, they'll keep on. They won't just be suffering. They won't have the means to actually do anything about it. So, I fully support this excellent motion. Thank you very much, Councillor Sarwar. And I think all our group does, and I think the vast majority in here do. But, we've got to follow science. And it's prophecies, they're not prophecies, it's scientific facts and, well, not predictions, but forecasts. And we need to get on with this as soon as possible for all of us here who have children, some grandchildren who are bothered about the environment, who can see for themselves what's happening. It's self-evident, it's irrefutable, it's unequivocal, and we need to get on with this. And I'm really pleased we've had this debate today. It's been, thank you very much, Councillor Sarwar. It's long overdue, and we need to keep it at the forefront of our debating, our motions, our policies as a council generally. A politician said recently, we need to be more interested in problem solving rather than point scoring. And today is a really good example of that. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kilbecky. Councillor Wise, please.
I wasn't going to speak today, but I have been stirred into action because of the reform councillors. And I speak as a grandmother of a 20-month-old toddler. And I'm really one advantage of being old is I'm probably not going to be around for some of the worst of this, but I am concerned about the sort of world that children are going to be facing. And because it is horrendous. And to say we need a discussion, there's been a discussion going on for years and years and years. Now is the time for action to be taken. We don't need more discussion. And, it isn't a matter of cost of living crisis or winter fuel allowance or doing something on the climate. We're one of the richest economies in the world. So yes, and in fact, the cost of living crisis is going to be affected by the cost of food going up because of climate change. So if we're really bothered about the cost of living crisis, then we should be actually supporting this motion. And as I say, yeah, I'm dead in favour of the winter fuel allowance. But as I say, it's not either or. We can be doing these things and we have to be doing these things. One thing that hasn't, I think, particularly come out, although partially has come out, is actually net zero and doing stuff on energy on climate actually creates jobs. If we're really bothered about unemployment, we actually ought to be doing more in terms of moving towards net zero. Because as I say, it's actually something that is really, really working. I also think, you know, we need to be thinking, there's always stuff happening in this country. Either it's too wet or it's too windy or it's too hot and the trains stop running. We actually need to be thinking about how we can actually cope with these weather changes. I've just had an enforced stay in Australia where it's the winter. But so I've missed most of the hot weather here, thank goodness. But I can tell you, I have been in Australia when it's hot, and they actually know what to do. So their schools aren't suffering like our schools have been, because they've actually adapted their buildings for hotter climates. And that's what we need to be doing. You know, I was reading about teachers having children lying on the floor and covering them with wet paper towels. Is that the sort of country we want to live in, that we're not actually addressing this issue now? And in terms of water, I mean, I'm totally in favour of public nationalisation of the water industry, because the fact is water is constantly being leaked out. Our bills go up. If we're really bothered about climate change, we actually ought to be doing something about the huge profits private water companies are making. They've got no incentive to actually deal with the leaks. And so we're then forced to have hose pipe bans and all that sort of stuff. So honestly, it's now not the time for more discussion. The time has come for action. And I fully support this. And the idea about you're not seeing as many flies and insects, well, no, that's because of climate change. You know, I think people just need to get real in reform about the current situation. So well done, Sully, for bringing this. And I think probably most of us will be supporting this motion, apart from reform. You're uniting us again as a council. Thank you.
You, Councillor Wise. Councillor Bell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. This discussion is not about whether you believe net zero or not, whether you believe climate change or not. This is about the Prime Minister, the highest person in the land, giving the public the opportunity to make the facts or see the facts and make a decision for themselves. So I'll be supporting this motion, then I'll be driving home in my electric car afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Kelly, please.
I think it's interesting. This is a 50-year journey, okay? We haven't just got here. In 1975, there was a massive small ozone hole over Australia and New Zealand. That's increased in 50 years, okay? So we're on a journey, and a journey which was reversible 25 years ago. But where we're at now, it's putting emergency measures to stop it, to stop essentially a tidal wave that's coming. And things like this are really important in that debate. And also, thank you, Valerie, for making a reference to the fact that we had to adapt to the way weather came into Australia. We've had 9-year droughts, but we still produce food because we've had to adapt. Sub-Saharan Africa has seen an increase of 5 degrees in the last 25 years, which has increased drought. Drought was something that only happened every now and then. It's a regular occurrence, and we become blind to it. And we go, it's okay. They always have, they have drought here or drought there. It's not. The reality is what we're looking at is something that we have to have conversations and have to have a national debate. We had that national debate, and that led to changes in buildings. That led to changes in road structures and a whole range of things. And I think until you start the conversation, you won't see those changes. So yes, and you can always buy a fan if you wish.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Darby, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rather like Councillor Wise, I've been rage baited into standing up and speaking. Although the fact that Councillor Wise can talk about being happy that they're in Australia to avoid the heat here tells you everything you need to know. climate change is absolutely real. It is accepted science at this point. And hearing people stand up and say how one-sided facts are, I'm sorry, facts are one-sided. You're either right or you are wrong. That is how facts work. The only real point I want to add onto the debate today is just to say that it's been clear over the last few years that we talk about the cost and you know, taxing people to be able to pay for coming to net zero and what have you. The cost of mitigation at this point is far less than the cost of allowing these climate events to continue. It's going to cost not just us as a city council or the government, it will cost people more money to have to deal with the events if we allow them to continue without doing the mitigation. But ultimately, what this notice of motion today is for is about getting information out to everyone, so that everyone can find out what is happening, make those informed decisions. I don't understand how anyone can be against getting such important information out there to people. So I'll be very happily supporting the motion. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Councillor Darby, Councillor Lowe, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it'll come as no surprise to any of us that the Green Party will be supporting this motion, and well done on everything you've done to get it through. I've been born in 2002. I've grown up learning about climate change since primary school. And then you leave primary school, you leave high school, you leave college, and people go, it's not our problem, we didn't start it. I really don't care who started it. In the words of my mother, I don't care who started it, I'm finishing it, because we all have to live on this planet. I was lucky enough to see the climate emergency briefing that was run by the Long Ridge Environment Group. And so I would encourage anyone who is against this motion to show up today and to watch it, and then to maybe reevaluate their position, because why would you be worried about people getting facts unless those facts go against what you believe?
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Could I bring in now Councillor Hull, who seconded the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that affects all of us, and I encourage every member of this chamber to support this notice of motion. The difficulty with externalities is that there's no supply and demand for externalities like pollution in simple economic terms. The other thing is that's been mentioned very eruditely by other members is that the cost of mending something is much more expensive than actually anticipating it. The earth is not an illimitable resource, and some people referred rather obliquely to Malthus and the idea of population explosion. That's a dated understanding from the 17th century, but Malthusian principles are interesting, as I'm sure some of the Green members will know. The externality, CFCs, for example, we knew about from the 1930s and 40s. Now, the effects of CFCs that were mentioned earlier to the ozone layer was a massive thing. And the cost of repairing it, and we knew that the CFCs were doing that damage. Are we going to continue walking a plank blindfold into this Greek tragedy where our children, and I am certain that the generations going through schools now will be much, much more aware and conscious and active, proactive about preserving the planet that we live on, because if they don't, then the consequences, quite frankly, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, sorry, are worse than nuclear holocaust. We will be poisoning the very place that we live in. So we heard mention of 1957 and 1976. Those records were broken this year on one day, but not one day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and continuously. In Spain, which was also mentioned, water is a huge crisis in Spain, where they've tried to reroute the Tagus River to irrigate the southern part of the country, which is predicted by 2050 to be unfarmable desert. The only desert in Europe is in Spain. And at the current change of climate, it will be unfarmable. That is an absurd notion if you think that we're going to have a sustainable planet. if you think about why there are fewer insects and things like that, that is a consequence of intensive farming because the paradigms of people's expectations go up. GDPs are measured by going up each year. That's something that ultimately is unsustainable if we think that the earth is an illimitable resource. It isn't. I fully approve of Councillor Sarwar's notice of motion, and I urge anybody in this chamber who has a modicum, a molecule of sense to support it. Thank you.
You, Councillor Hull. Selwyn, do you want to come back and?
Madam Mayor, could I just come in? We're just, one or two of our members are struggling and we're out of water. Can we just get some more water? Down to extreme heat.
Do we just want to fill the jugs and we just wait for that? Just whilst the jugs are being filled and bottles and so forth, Councillor Selwyn, do you want to come up and sum up now and, you know, and obviously some of the comments that were made and questions posed, if you want to round that up, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank everyone for bringing their sort of questions, remarks forward. I mean, I'm not asking anyone to sign up to a political ideology. It's about asking the public whether they should have access to clear scientific information, and that's the whole point of this motion here today, is giving the public that access to that information, and not by politicians, it's by scientists, by actual people who have done the work, who have researched and are paid to do their job correctly and efficient as they do. I mean, yeah, there was a couple of comments from colleagues across the House around obviously net zero, cost of living, poverty, but I think while we can talk about national politics all day long and national policies, etc., but I think it's important just to reiterate about what we actually are doing. And I'm sort of shying away a little from the actual motion, but it's this council that are doing a lot of work on that, doing the positive work on poverty, taking children out of poverty. It's this council that are doing more on jobs than others. So I think for the Reform colleagues over there, I mean, you could talk about jobs as much as you want. We're raising them. You can talk about cost of living. We're taking people out of cost of living. You can talk about poverty. We're doing the work on poverty. I mean, you could talk about net zero, but you've been told not to talk about net zero. I mean, that's a different thing. I could even talk about your national leader and his response on not just climate change, but also human rights and equality and inclusion, etc. But I won't go there. I mean, that's not the motion for this. But what I'm asking from the chamber today is do support this motion. It is, climate change is real. It is affecting it. It's here. It's now. It's not 100 years away. Do watch the film. Make up your mind after that. It is backed by experts, and just thank you for supporting, I suppose. I mean, I can't really say much on it apart from it is a people emergency briefing. Then the name itself is explanatory enough. So do come and watch the briefing and make your own minds up. And I'm happy to take any questions outside of this chamber, anything related to what we're doing as a city council on emissions and everything else. But a lot of that published data is on our website now, so you should be able to see it. I made sure of that last year when I came in. So, but no, thank you very much. Remember, it's about science, it's about facts, it's not about the impacts. Thank you.
Before we go to the vote, thank you, Councillor Salva, for bringing the motion and everybody that's contributed to the debate today. So can we now go to the vote on this item? All those in favour, please. Anyone against? Yeah. Any abstentions? No. Right. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Just wait till you all have some water. No dehydration breaks, sorry. All right, item 10 is the overview and scrutiny annual report for 25-26. Councillor Potter, do you wish to speak on the report, which is for noting only?
Yeah, just very quickly, Madam Mayor, thank you very much to all cabinet members and committee members that attended during the year. And we can't go without saying that obviously the horrendous loss of Jackie from member services that happened during this year. She was an invaluable member of the scrutiny team as the scrutiny support officer. She passed away suddenly and unexpectedly this year it still doesn't feel right. She's not there in the room with us. And it couldn't pass this year without giving my tribute to Jackie. She was a lovely human being in every possible way. And so it's still sad that she's not there.
Thank you, Councillor Potter, and thank you. Now, can we note this item? Thank you. Item 11 is the leader's report. Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak on the report, which is for noting only? Okay, thank you. Can we now note this item? Right. Thank you. Item 12 is the special emergency decisions, but there are none to report to this meeting. The next ordinary meeting of the council is at 2 p.m. on Thursday, 24th of September in the town hall. Could note that, please. Thank you. Now we need to consider passing the following resolution: that the public be excluded from this meeting during consideration of the following item of business on the grounds that there is likely to be disclosure of exempt information which is described in the paragraphs of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, which is specified against the heading to the item, than that in all circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing it. Are you all happy to agree the exemption and move to Part B? Thank you.